Hi, welcome back to Discovering an Educated Life. This is Megan, and today I'm coming to you today from my living room to talk about what worked for our 5th grade year, 2022-2023, and what didn't, and talk about how we altered plans and changed things throughout the year and what we ended up using instead of the original plan and what we liked and kept with the original plan, because we didn't change everything. So if you followed me for any length of time, you probably know, sorry, I'm looking at my giant pile of books next to me to go over, that we were using 5th grade Timberdoodle. So that was our plan for the year. I'm just kind of putting it back here behind me. And I'm going to jump right into the language arts portion and talk about what we used, and with that, what worked and what didn't. So we used Spelling UC, American Spirit E, and we will get through the first part only. So as of this video, it's April, the end of middle end of April, and we're going into May. So we will finish this book, but not part 2. So I don't know if I'm going to continue that next year or how that's going to look, but we will get through part 1, and we liked it and it worked. And I'll show you just a quick example. Like this is some of the work. This is some copy work. She liked it. It helped her spell. She grew. That's what we need. So I like that it keeps it simple, those types of things. This book here, the 101 Doodle definition, she retained a lot of that. And the definitions here, like she literally just drew them. You see, like it'll tell you the cornucopia, and she just drew it, and then we would talk about it, and then we would review it, and she retained a lot of that. What didn't work? I have a couple more things maybe that I can say worked. So daily 6 straight writing was a dud. We did about 40 lessons. I think there's 125 in here. She wasn't liking it. It was hindering her writing instead of helping it. I'm not saying it's a bad program. I just think there are better options, especially for creative writing, that are out there, and I'd used this in the past and we really liked it. I just think the older she's gotten, it like really boxed her into the style they needed her to do or wanted her to do, and she's really creative and a good writer, and I just don't think it helped her to write. Instead, I did a lot of creative writing prompts and tried to do a little bit of scaffolded lessons. I had a few lessons left from Sunlight's grade 4 language arts, and I pulled that back out and did some writing lessons from that. And then I also didn't like this. This is the Those Press Literature. The book and the stories in it themselves were good. There was a lot of pieces to it that I didn't like. Like I wanted this to be simple, and I felt the need to like teach it. And I already was doing a book club at our co-op, and she was reading those. And she also did the Timberdoodle book list, the book challenge, and those, like took that seriously. And she did a lot of that challenge, and we did book basket time every day, and she, like, for her to read, not for me to read to her, and she read hundreds of books this year, and we talked about some of them, and some she just read and moved on. And we also do read aloud revival, and I read aloud from that. So the extra like literature component using Mostos was not necessary for us, and I was not a fan of it. What did we do instead? I told you we read a lot of books and did that, and we also added in this. So let me backtrack here. I don't even have this sitting in front of me because that's how long it's been since we've used it, but we started the year using Easy Grammar, and I did not like Easy Grammar like at all. I think she learned from it. I even learned some things I didn't know from it, and then we got really bored really fast. We did about a month of it, and every day, maybe a month and a half to 2 months, but by Thanksgiving, I was done doing Easy Grammar. So I grabbed this workbook off Amazon. It's Easy Peasy's Language Arts 5 workbook, and I bought the teacher guide. It was probably $15 for both, and I will just show you like a quick example of what an assignment might look like here. Sorry, I'm trying to gather. This is like a rhyming lesson. There were writing lessons. There were poetry lessons. If I look at the beginning here, I'll tell you, like, I'm trying to kind of flip in and tell you, like, what kinds of things did we cover in this year? Like parts of speech, writing psalms, writing similes and metaphors, what's tangible and intangible, verbs, imperatives, and adverbs, writing haikus, write all different types of poetry, spelling and spelling rules. There was grammar and grammar quizzes. We learned about misused words and adjectives, and where to place a comma, and just all different types. A lot of poetry, subjects and predicates, lots of spelling and writing. Possessive nouns, adverbs, comma rules. Like, there's just so much in here, and it's pretty much just one simple lesson each day. And it wasn't like the same format and marking up sheets every day in the same way. That got boring really fast. And I think, yes, you need repetition, but that kind of repetition for my daughter was just like, she was so frustrated with it. And I got frustrated with it because it just felt so dry. Sorry, I apologize. It's allergy season and my allergies are really getting to me. So if you didn't yet, grab your coffee and join me. So the last thing that I can think of here that we used for language arts that we really stuck it out with this year is our cursive success from Handwriting Without Tears. And that's not part of Timberdoodle, but we like those workbooks and they're really simple and straightforward. So we really used pieces from Timberdoodle, but we really kind of just reinvented the wheel with what we used this year. It wasn't exactly what I thought the year was going to look like, if I'm being honest. So what about history? Let's talk. We liked this. Okay, I will tell you, I really wanted to like this more than we did, but we liked it. So I don't say this is a dud. It wasn't something that like we couldn't learn from. We ended up using it much different than I anticipated. I did try to read it at first, and I'll tell you that was probably one of the problems I had, is that I didn't give this to her independently. I tried to read it to her. That wasn't a good idea. It didn't work out. So I don't recommend reading this aloud. I apologize. I don't recommend reading this aloud. It's beautiful, like America the Beautiful. The book is beautiful. There are so many good pictures. There's so much content, but it's not a living book. I've heard people say, oh, it's like a textbook that's a living book. No, that's not accurate. It is by one author, but it's definitely written in textbook style, like chronological fashion and presentation of facts. So that is not how we're used to doing school. We came from a very Charlotte Mason style school, and I will tell you, like, I will just read a snippet, okay? I'm just open to a random page, and this says, the Massachusetts Bay Colony sent 300 English colonists to Salem under the leadership of Roger Conant, whose statue is at top right. The following year, the company sent engineer Thomas Graves there so he could begin preparations for a large migration in 1630. He took about 100 Salem residents a few miles away and laid out the village of Charleston beside the Charles River, seen above. Okay, that's a textbook. A living book is a story. This, yes, they're presenting it in like the chronological fashion where they're saying this is what happened, but it definitely comes across as textbooky. Like, it's not explaining the story of what happened in their lives. It doesn't come alive for you. It doesn't make you feel like you're living alongside him. You're hearing about something he did. Now, like I said, I loved the beauty of it. I loved that we were quickly kind of progressing through and covering history in a quick fashion, but then I kept wanting to dive deeper. So then we ended up not even using it as like we should have. We should have finished 2 books this year in America the Beautiful, and we finished like 3/4 of one. It just took so long, and I kept adding in books, and she did do the there's like reading that you can do with it. She did those independently, and I ended up letting her do this independently, and I just pre-read it, and we talked about it and used discussion questions, and she did a lot of the student workbook. She was okay with that. Sometimes she just felt like it was busy work. She did some of the projects like the Pocahontas Museum, I don't know, there's a few other ones she did. She also did the maps. She did a lot of the maps, and she really liked the map work. So that was a plus, that like that was more geography she did, and she actually really enjoyed the geography. So I mean, that's why I said it's not a dud. It just wasn't what I wanted for history. I think this part was better than the rest. She really liked reading the primary source documents, which are kind of like living books. They were primary sources, so you get to kind of feel it a little bit more. I don't think I have anything else from this sitting here, but there were a few other pieces. The timeline was like we were used to doing like a book of centuries and more of a Charlotte Mason style. I really like to use like Homeschool in the Woods and use the timeline pieces. So the timeline was mediocre compared to that, but it helped her to put things into place when they happened. So it wasn't bad. Like, I wouldn't say no to this curriculum. I just don't think it was engaging like things we've used before. And given that, we did a little bit different things for some of our history this year. So like I said, we only did about 3/4 of this. I don't know if we'll do any more of it. It just wasn't our favorite history thing, and we love history. So I don't think that there's nothing wrong with it. It's just, if you're a family that just wants a quick and straightforward way to present American history, this is good. And it is compared to a lot of other resources out there. But if you're somebody who really likes living books, you love literature, you want to dig really deep into history, I wouldn't say this is going to do it for you. But that do the next thing mindset is helpful to have, like just to continue straightforward and don't feel like you got to go as deep, because I always am like, oh, we got to read one more thing about this. Let me grab this book, or like that's been my problem this year. So I'll tell you that. So I did, and this is probably another issue, I did utilize some of these books, The History of Us from Joy Hakim. These fleshed out the history a little better. I really liked the depth of this, and it is a living book. So those books helped us to, it's a secular perspective. Timberdoodle does sell them. I owned them already. They were on my shelf, and it's just too much to do both. Especially if you're trying to do a 1-year pace of American history, but we liked them. So I used that. Another thing that helped us a lot with history she read this year is the Cobblestone magazine from Cricket. We subscribed to this at the beginning of the year, and each month she got one. This version is The Mighty Mississippi, America's River. So it's just a really good children's magazine, and it's American history. I'm showing you just like print to give you an idea of what that looks like. She really, she read every single one within a couple days of getting it this year. And that was something I kind of added into her book basket. Another thing we did utilize for our American history / geography this year is the master book set. This is the Children's Atlas of the USA. And it came with there was another 50 states book and a teacher's guide. And we just did the 50 states that way. A couple months into the school year, I actually also bought something from Half a 100 Acre Wood. I couldn't think of what it's called. It's called Mission Lasting Liberty, and we ended up supplementing a lot from that. I used a lot of their book lists and a lot of their things, but this is the thing. That's too much. I want to be more of an essentialist, and that was my goal this year. And in our school, especially in history, I tend to just do way too much. We were doing America the Beautiful. We were reading things from master books like this and America's Story, and we were reading from Joy Hakim, and we were reading The Witch of Blackbird Pond and the Hero Tales from the missionary stories. We were reading William Bradford, and I just all simultaneously, and then it just became so much that it was probably a mistake to try to take on all of those pieces. And we also were utilizing, sorry, I'm jumping around here, our Draw the USA. So this was really good. This is probably one of our favorite things that came out of the Timberdoodle coursework this year. So yeah, it's a lot. What we tried to take on this year was a lot in the history area, and I probably should have done a little bit different and just used one program and just moved through it so we could get through it. Like, I don't mean just to check a box, but just so that we covered the time period we needed to cover. And that's necessary. Like, having too many choices and too many options and too many things can be a hard hindrance. Like, it can be a big hindrance in your homeschool. And I really recommend to just pick something at the beginning of the year. Even if you love history and this is not your thing, then switch it out completely, or stick to it and just try to do the next thing and do the next thing and do the next thing and do the next thing. And if you realize it's a format issue, if you realize you need to simplify or like essentialize or minimize what you're doing in a day, do it. But don't keep adding on to make it something it's not. That's something I struggled with doing this year. So last but not least, another part of history. I had thought this was just going to become a morning basket thing, and it ended up becoming an afternoon thing. We ended up reading a lot more of a child's history of the world, and we ended up doing it as like a Roman history study because we hadn't done Rome. And I kind of created my own thing there. And in the afternoons, we would do Roman history online, or not online, but like I would read, and then I would read from a couple different books, and then I would pull up the internet and get online and do like a map study or a YouTube video, and I would like stream it to the TV, and I just kind of like made my whole own thing there, and we did that in the afternoons. So that's a lot of history for 1 year. I think that's everything we did, but that's a lot of history. So our plan, I wouldn't recommend to anybody. Like, I would not recommend that as a plan. Next year, I'm definitely want to streamline, and I'm not sure what that's going to look like exactly yet, and I will be back to talk about it, but it's not going to look like this year at all. So I'm trying to grab my last couple of resources here to talk about what else worked. So this was a fail. I wanted to love this. This was history. It was history of science to me more than anything, but there were experiments and concepts that were learned. But I will tell you, the biggest problem with this to me was the experiment a day. I wanted something that did not require an experiment a day. I know you only have to do this like every 2 days to get through it, but if we didn't have the materials for the experiment, if there was a day that it just was a struggle, like I just didn't do science. And so this science was a dud this year all around. Like, I could not get through this. I really struggled. But we do classical conversations. I don't do it in a group. We do foundations, and we did that with our co-op this year. We all did it together, and we worked on memorization. So she did get experiments in our foundations group. She got memorization of the human body and of some chemistry. So I was fine with that. Like, she also we did about 10 experiments, probably 10 lessons out of this book. Only 10. So that's not a lot. It took us so long to get to them. And then, because it's like the last thing I kind of schedule in a day is like that and art. And so this and art, by the time we did all this crazy amounts of history, because there were so many things I was trying to fit in, we were not up for science or art. And so they just kind of kept falling to the wayside, and that's what happened. So what did we do instead? I said we did the classical conversations. She also did a few lessons. I had Master Books, God's Design for Life, and it has human body. We probably did about 10 or 12, 15 lessons out of that as well when we were doing human body with co-op. And I didn't intend to do that, but when I bought Half a 100 Acre Wood, I actually already had that human body life science on the shelf. And I thought, if this isn't working, let's try it. So we did some lessons out of that portion only. It wasn't super in depth. She got through this whole book, Dr. Bonafide 1 from Timberdoodle, which again, that's kind of human body and anatomy. So I feel like we really covered human body and anatomy this year. And I'm fine with that being what we did. She also she's got this for a couple years, the National Geographic Kids, and she reads these every month. And I did have her write a couple things up just because we weren't doing a lot of other science this year in that. So that is what we did. Like, it doesn't seem like a lot, and I know she's a 5th grader, so we really need to be digging a little deeper into science. But I feel like we had a decent year of human body. She knows a lot of the bones of the body now. Like, she's really memorized those. She knows a lot about like the digestive system, how our heart works, our lungs. She knows like the different types of tissue that our bodies have. I mean, I don't feel like that's a bad year for what she came away knowing and learning, but we didn't do the amount of experiments that I would have liked to have done, or maybe some more of the STEM I would have liked to have done. So that's an area that maybe I'll have to look into, like how we're going to present that next year, or just do something a little bit differently. So last but not least, no, that's not last. It's close to last, but math. This is a very well-loved book. It's like she did complete Gamma. We did not start on Delta like I thought we would, but Matthew C worked. I did jump around a little to try some different concepts out. We did some Life of Fred. We did some easy peasy math, just because I felt like this is only multiplication, and I kind of struggled with the idea of that with her being a 5th grader and using Gamma, and I tried to go through it faster, and it didn't happen like I thought it was going to. It still took us like all year to get through Gamma. I wanted it to go quick, and I was like trying to speed up at the beginning of the year, but then sometimes like at Christmas we slacked, and a couple other times like we would take a week off here or a week off there or 2 days here, and like it just ended up being, it took us still almost all year to get through Gamma. And I wish we would have went faster. The program itself was good and worked, but that's where we are. And then we also did art. Oh, so hold on. Was there anything else with math that we did? I don't think so. We had also math lessons for a living education, and we had done 4 and I owned 5, and I thought maybe we'll try this. No, it didn't happen. Like, she worked on her multiplication all year. We did learn, like I used Life of Fred and taught like mean, median, mode, and range. We taught some concepts of like integers and some rules and negative numbers. I tried to cover things I knew, like you might have a gap here as we go forward. I need you to know these things. That's about what we did for math. Art, I didn't do any of the art that came with the year. So I had all these beautiful art pieces that I was so excited about doing, and I bought all this stuff. I ordered all these things from Blick, and I thought this is going to be a great art year, and it was, but I didn't use any of that. I literally didn't open it up. I don't know what happened there. I just think it was like the idea of once I got through everything else that was on the shelf, and it looked daunting and like this thing that was going to be challenging for me to do and plan. And so instead of me, as almost like it was too perfect and pretty, and I don't know, like we did the Aquarella right when we started the year, and I actually just bought my daughter another one of those because she liked it so much. But what we did mostly is Evan Moore, the teacher child or teaching children art or something like that. We did the Evan Moore, it's like all the elements, and I probably did 20 or 30 lessons from that. We also did some Draw Right Now with our Half a 100 Acre Wood program. I have this book sitting here. She does like to do this, how to draw almost every day, and they're just like each day of the year has a little prompt, and she has a little journal she does that in. So she did some drawing from that. I taught her, I don't have the Evan Moore sitting here, but I really liked that. We learned about like line, shape, form, value, color, like all the color theory. We didn't cover any like specific artist, or we didn't do anything in depth like that this year, but I feel like she has a really good foundation of the elements of art from this year. And that was the goal. I didn't touch any of the art. Like, I even had Master Books art on the shelf. I didn't even open that, but I didn't open any of the Timberdoodle I bought. So I think I just overbought a little bit this year. Like some of it, there was just no way of getting to it all. And we put a lot of our focus into the history and still didn't get through it because there was just too many pieces we were doing. So all in all, it was a great 5th grade year. I'm just really contemplating how I want to do next year differently. I just was finishing up reading the book Essentialism and realizing that I need to do the best and leave the rest. I know like that's like a commonly overused quote, but I really do need to do that. I need to take what is the best of our day, and not just like one thing, like, oh, history is the best, we're going to not do anything else. I mean, what is the best use of our time in history? What is the best history? What do I need to cover? And how can I do that without purchasing 35 books? Like, how can I teach history without buying and overspending and over planning and overdoing in one area? Because we don't need to do that. And we don't need to cover every topic every year. I don't need to do Roman history and Greek history and modern history, and I don't need to do all that in the same year. And I tend to oh, we're missing this, we're missing that. I tend to do that to myself. So this year, this next school year, going into 6th grade, I don't want to do that. That is burdensome to me, to my daughter. I want her to be able to do some things that help her to grow, and not just me spoon feeding her a bunch of information about history. So I'm really analyzing that now. What do we want for the future? Because going into middle school, we are going to have and need a lot more independence. So this 5th grade year was a learning journey for both of us. We really, not in education of what we learned. I don't mean oh, we learned so much about American history, or oh, we learned so much about grammar or verbs or literature. The foundation has been laid in a lot of those areas. I think this year was a lot about discovering how we work together and how we learn together in this new season, where we already have a really good foundation laid. Because we've used some really good programs in the past for all of our subjects. From language arts, we have such a good foundation from all of the Read Aloud Revival we've done for literature, from all of the language lessons for today from My Father's World, from all of the Sunlight language arts we've done, just all the way down to some of the My Father's World phonics and things, all just this great, rich literature we've read. We have a good foundation in language arts. Writing needs some work still, and we're realizing that. I'm thinking that math, there's a foundation that's been laid. She needs some more help to get there in math over the next couple of years before we get into some of the upper stuff, but it's being laid. And even in science, we've covered a lot of material quickly, and I think sometimes that just leads to burnout. History too, there's such a good foundation laid in history that sometimes we've done so many things that when we try to go back and repeat them, we went so deep last time in something, it's are we really doing this again? And are we really doing it this way? I think there was a lot of that happening this year. That was we've covered this, we've talked about this, we've done this. Not that you don't need to hear it again, but it needs to be approached in an age appropriate and different way. And we're working on that, and we're working on how to let go and give some more independence. My daughter really wanted more independence this year, and I needed her to have independence this year, and I still struggled with letting it go. I still struggled with that. You can do it on your own. I can't spoon feed this to you. And I think that could be partly that only child syndrome. Not that she has the problem, but that I have the problem, letting go and letting her be I can do this on my own. I don't need you to walk me through the history lesson. Give me the book and let me do the work. Even in some of her other subjects, I really needed to let go. Maybe help with some of the planning, maybe help with some of the scheduling, but let go of the idea that she doesn't need me. She does not need me the whole day. She doesn't need me to do all the things. So that's where we were for 5th grade. So we're looking forward to a great middle school year next year, and I will be back soon to talk about what we're going to be doing for middle school. So have a good day, and I love to hear what you guys loved and didn't love this year, how your year went, and what you're doing for school. Bye! Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Ding the bell.